All right, you ready?
Yes.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. I'm your host, Abby.
And I'm also your host, Genesis.
And welcome to the Exactlyyy Podcast.
This podcast is for lovers of books, pop cultures, and those who love to listen to chaotic ramblings among friends.
On this episode, we'll be discussing our weekly ratings and hosting our very first author interview. We're very excited.
We're so excited that we have Katana Collins on this episode. Hi, Katana.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be the inaugural guest.
Yes. No, we're honestly so happy. As soon as obviously your team reached out to us and we read what the book was about, we were immediately like, yes, let's do it. We want to do this. So, and we love the book. And that's something we're obviously going to get into as the episode goes on.
It would be very awkward if you didn't.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Very awkward 45 minutes.
Agreed, for sure. No, but we loved it. And it's we were both screaming at each other like through text and just like, oh my gosh, this book.
Thank you.
I need to share a screenshot because she finished before I did. We'll talk about this later too, but I start getting these texts in all capital letters. Where are you? What part are you at? I'm like, I'm this far. You're behind me. Catch up. I need to talk about this. So it was really fun.
Oh, that's exciting. It's been a long time since I've written a cliffhanger. So good to know that there are some all caps conversations happening.
Absolutely.
Lots of reactions and emotions went through that.
Good. That's what we aim for.
Yes. So for those tuning in, just a little bit of a mini background on Katana. She penned her first book in 2012 and is now an international author with 15 published books. And I think this is so amazing that she writes a wide range of romance genres. So you have paranormal, new adult, small town, erotic suspense. So basically, if you like romance, she will write it.
She'll write it. And we were talking about this earlier, but because you've got such a wide range, we're both very excited to dive into your backlist now that we have read Broken Romeo.
Boy, I mean, it's extensive. It says 15 in that, but I think that's an old bio because I want to say it's got to be upwards of like 25 now.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, but like not everything might be your cup of tea because there's so many subgenres there. So
yeah. But that's cool though. Yeah. I like that.
No, it's cool because it also, if someone doesn't necessarily like erotic suspense, but they like paranormal, it's like, I can just read this. So you're trying to reach like different audiences. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I read all the genres. So for me, I was like, why is this a big deal? We don't all do this, but I know a lot of readers just like to read. Or you get into like, binge where like all of a sudden you're into the fantasy for 4 months and then you're switching, you're like, I need a cozy mystery for a while.
That's absolutely me. I'm a huge mood reader and it goes in phases like that.
So I'm also a mood writer, I guess, because I just write what I'm in the mood for.
That's great though, because I don't think you see that very often. A lot of times you see an author kind of stick with, a single pathway, but
yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of benefits to doing that I don't necessarily reap. Like there's a definite audience you build and you get this core group that always is binging every single book that comes out versus the way I write, like I said, something might just not be for this reader, even though they loved the last series. And that's okay. I'm all right with that.
As long as you're keeping the enjoyment and the passion for it, that's the most important thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I said every time kind of someone tries to convince me that it's better to stick with one subgenre. I'm always like, I will quit writing if I did. I think I would just get so burnt out of trying to write the same, whatever, like small town or angsty new adult that I would just like, I'd just walk away from it probably. Not great quality, but that's who I am, so it is what it is.
No, it's who you are. Yeah.
And again, I will continue to repeat this because I think because some authors stick to one thing, you know, like obviously if I don't like small town romances and then a certain author just writes small town romances, then I'm just going to be like, I'm not necessarily going to want to explore their writing. But then if you have an author that's diving into so many different subgenres, it's like, yeah, there's something there for literally everybody. So it works. It totally works.
Thank you. I like to think so.
So one thing that we do every week on our episode is we have what we called weekly ratings. And it's just kind of discussing what we've been watching, reading, adoring, treating, or eating for this week, because obviously we want to discuss more about your book. And just going into that portion of the episode, we removed watching, and we were like, we barely watch any, stuff anyway. So let's just dive right into the reading, adoring, treating, and eating. So Abby, why don't you start us off with what you've been reading?
Yeah. Okay. So keeping it short and sweet. I've read This Week Broken Romeo, so I'll hold off on more discussion on that since that's what the episode's about. And then I also very recently started the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy by Stephanie Garber. I want to say Garber. Mm-hmm. So very excited about that. We did a buddy read of the Caraval trilogy a few months ago, I guess now. And so continuing the story will be good. What about you? What have you been reading?
So for me, I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and I discussed this book earlier in another episode where it gives off Gilmore Girls vibes. And that's really what it is. And even at the end, the author gave a little bit like, this is for readers who, would have preferred for Lorelai. Is it Lorelai? Because
yes,
Abby, you know more about Gilmore Girls than I
Lorelai.
do. Lorelai and Luke, if they had gotten together earlier and just kind of like that. So it was a very nice read. And I'm also buddy reading with Abby, Once Upon a Broken Heart, and just started it this morning, and I'm already hooked. So it's going good. It's going good. What about you, Katana?
I just finished A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Ooh.
I know.
What did you think? Did you like it?
I did. I liked it a lot.
Okay.
I sort of found my segue into the fantasy room. What's it called? Romantasy, right?
Romantasy.
I found that my way into that with The Cruel Prince and Holly Black initially.
Oh, I love that series.
Oh my God. Guys, I devoured that series and so this was sort of my next, and what I heard was that this was The Cruel Prince but naughtier.
Yes.
Yes.
I
don't know what words we're allowed to say on this podcast.
Spicy.
No, go ahead.
You can say whatever. Yeah, we're fine.
It delivered. It definitely delivered. But I do feel like I'm not gonna dive right into the next book. I'm gonna I'm gonna switch and maybe do what is it called? The Bromance Book Club, I think is
that one's good. Yeah, that one's
really
good.
Cute. I mean, it's been for ages, and I'm just slow to get to my TBR list. But
we understand.
Very understandable.
Yeah.
So Abby, what have you been adoring?
I have been adoring. This one was tricky for me because I haven't gone and done much this week, but we have our house fully cozy for the holidays, and I am just loving I have blankets everywhere. So everywhere, is a little reading spot. Naturally, we've got the lights up. So that's what I've been adoring, is all of the cozy vibes.
Nice. So for me, I've been going to this local bookstore, and they try to do local events. And one of the events that they recently had was live piano music. So they kind of set up the piano outside of the bookstore and all the seats, and they had this huge Christmas tree as a backdrop. So it was very nice, and it was around sunset time. So it was very cozy and it was great. I honestly loved it. And that same day, I stayed basically from noon all the way to nighttime till they closed at the bookstore. So it was a great atmosphere. Just I love being at the bookstore. So it worked.
Wow,
I loved
so
it.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, Katana?
I have been adoring tea lately, which I'm not a tea drinker. I'm a coffee drinker. I've been my whole life actually anti-tea. If anything, I'm
really?
Why bother with tea? Why drink that when you could have coffee? But a few months ago, my girlfriend and I decided to try this local place with high tea. It is some of the most delicious tea I've ever had in my life. And like, I don't say that lightly because tea is something you drink when you're sick, and that's it for me. So I like bought some of their tea and I make it an event when I have it at home now. I like brew a pot. I get the cute little like sugar and creamer cups that are antique that and I like set up little tea sandwiches for I pretend that I'm in Downton Abbey, basically.
That is the cutest thing.
I love it.
And so I've been doing that probably once or twice a week, that I like make myself a little tea afternoon. Again, I think it's like high tea, what, at 3 or 4 o'clock. So yeah.
That's
I'm
amazing.
with you. I love warm, cozy drinks. I'm mainly a coffee girl, but I really like tea too. And when I was opening the PR package for the Broken Romeo box, I was so excited. I kept squealing like, oh my gosh, a little tea diffuser, a little spoon. I can't wait to do like a little video of like making tea and like reading the book. That'll be fun. But
there's a reason why that character drinks tea.
Love that.
In my life, I was like, oh, I kind of get it.
Makes sense. No, like when I saw it too, I was like, I just got the package right before we were recording.
Oh, good. I was worried I was going to make it to you, but I'm glad it did.
I got it, and I was on a FaceTime call with Abby, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at, I was just so excited with everything. The little, I had to ask her what the little diffuser heart was. I was like, what do I do with this? I don't know. And then she explained, I was like, that is so neat. That's so cute. So no, I loved it.
You had the discrete covers. I think you got a set of different covers. Yeah.
Yeah, we got the I don't know, Abby. I did not look at your reel because I did not want to get spoiled, but
it's okay.
So yeah, I got the discreet.
I messaged her too, and I was like, "You're gonna love the Not Safe for Work artwork." Oh, that was good too.
Never sure about including that.
It always we love it.
We love it. Yes. We never say no to that. So
good. Glad to hear it.
Matt walked in, my husband, and he saw where I'd opened the box, and that was like sitting on top. He goes, I see you've been reading something spicy. I was like, yes, I have.
Amen.
What about treating? And this is where we either regret our choices on a splurge, or we're just like, you know what, it had to happen, you know? So what happened there?
My treating is not a bad one this week. I did a little Pango Books. It's, if you're not familiar with it, it's like an online third-party book selling site. So just random music, kind of like Mercari, or I guess like eBay or something like that. And I found a shop that was having a sale, and I ordered lots of books that were on my TBR that I've been wanting to read for a long time. So I'm very excited about that.
You never regret that.
No, never regret a book purchase. Solid. You're supporting another bookworm. You're shopping during a sale. Like, it was fine. It was great.
Perfect.
What about you, Jen?
So for me, I have been slightly behaving because November was a very crazy month for me, where I was just like not even thinking about what I was spending on. I was just like, I want this, I want this, I want that. And so now I'm trying to be like a little bit wiser, but this might be a splurge later on, where I already have the hardcover books for Once Upon a Broken Heart series, but Abby has the UK versions of Once Upon a Broken Heart, and they look beautiful. And I'm like, okay, so maybe I need the hardcovers. But then I started reading the book because I also have another edition of Once Upon a Broken Heart in paperback. And I was like, I really loved reading it in paperback. So I was like, okay, maybe I should get the paperback versions. And now I'm like, should I just get both versions? So I need to contemplate what I want to do with my life when it comes to that purchase.
You're unsure.
I'm very unsure. That's pretty much it for now. Hopefully, we'll see. What about you, Katana?
Let's see. For me, so my husband and I, for our like Christmas gift this year, we are just sort of pooling our money, and we're getting a new bed because our bed is very old, and like it's fine. It's a fine bed, but it's a queen, and we were like, you know what? Maybe we upgrade to a king-sized bed. So that's what we bought, and it's like 18 weeks until it comes in. So it's like not even going to be here for Christmas. But the really fun part of that, I think, is not the bed, but I get to get a new comforter and a new like linen set. Like I get to basically
yeah.
and like I'm a pillow girl. Like I like having as many pillows as possible on the bed. And I don't know if you do. I'm a make your bed every day kind of gal.
Oh, me too.
Same.
Love hearing it. So like, and poor Sean, like he'll come in and he's like, why are there 10 pillows? And like they just go on the floor every night when we crawl into bed, but still. So yeah, I get to kind of like redesign the whole bed, which I'm super excited for.
That's so exciting.
So exciting.
I agree. I think that's the best part about getting a new bed. It's just kind of like not redecorating, but just kind of like just getting new things for it and just making it look new.
Yeah, like
you know,
it's actually not about, I mean, it's about the bed in terms of comfort, but the style for me at least is not the bed. The style is everything that goes on the bed.
Exactly.
Agreed. Yeah. And lastly, for eating, we love to eat. So we had to include that in our weekly ratings.
I haven't been eating anything super particular recently, like no cravings of anything, but I did put Christmas themed coffees because I've been obsessed with making those at home. Like I love doing my own little like peppermint or like copycat recipes off of Pinterest. And I've been doing those like every day. And I've become a 2 coffee a day girl again, which is not always great for me because caffeine gives me the jitters, but that's what I've been loving doing lately.
Nice. No, a Christmas themed coffees, so they're just, they taste different, especially at this time of year. It's great. It's perfect. So for me, I just love going to the cafe and eating a brownie from the cafe. It tastes different. To me, it's not the same as at home. So I love going and having them warm it up and then drinking either coffee or hot cocoa with it. And it's like my happy Zen place when I do that. So that's what I've been eating lately, and I'm obsessed with it. So
yeah, without a doubt. Why does it taste so much better at the coffee shop?
Yes.
What is that? Like you can get it to go, take it home, warm it up, and it's like, oh, I mean, it's fine. It's good. It's a brownie. Like I'm not gonna spit it out, but something about having it there, I don't know.
It really is different.
And the fact that Abby, you are only a 1 to 2 coffee a day kind of gal, like mind blowing. I'm like, this is my third, and it's 11:26, and like this.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know if you can see.
I love that.
Like I think what the average coffee mug is like 12 ounces, maybe.
Is that like 16?
This bad boy is at least 16, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I just get jittery with it, but I will say that I do decaf a lot. Like I'll keep going with decaf if I'm really in the mood for it. But
I'm not saying that my way is the way to be. My way is not the way to be. It is a terrible way to live. Like there's a reason why by 3 p.m. I'm like, Sean comes in, he's like, whoa, girl, calm down.
That is so funny.
And what about you, Katana? What have you been eating or even drinking?
Sure. I mean, I kind of answered it with the tea.
Yeah, true.
The other thing, so Portland, Maine is such a foodie town. It is like, there's a weird amount of James Beard award-winning chefs and like patisserie. Like it is just bizarre how good of food we have here. If you ever come, I'll take you out on like a food tour. I have hair stuck to my lip gloss.
Ooh.
Not what I enjoy eating right now. So a little bakery coffee shop opened up earlier this year down the street from I shouldn't triangulate my location like that, but whatever. A bakery opened up in our town called the Ugly Duckling. And every day they do a different pastry. So you have to you don't have to, but I do, follow them on their social, and they'll like post what their pastry of the day is. And they do a daily chocadero, which is like what I would maybe call like a donut. It kind of feels like a donut to me. And yeah, so like I think yesterday might have been like a gingerbread chocadero. Anyway, so like it's terrible because every day I follow them and I'm like, but but today is the potato chip Trocadero, and I need to try this. And every day I'm having pastries, and again, it's probably not for the best, but it's delicious.
Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing.
Not a bad way to be living.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
I mean, I at least walk it off. Like I can walk there and walk home, and I bring my laptop and I do my writing, because I'm a cafe writer. I do a lot better if I'm in a coffee shop writing.
Nice. Since we've been talking a lot about coffee, I read this little tidbit in your bio, and we're going to go over it very quickly because we want to just dive into Broken Romeo. But you mentioned something about how when your husband would give you like decaf, you would immediately like pick up on it. How did you know the difference? Was it taste or was it a what?
It's a flavor thing. Yeah, it tastes like it's a slightly different, like maybe it has like kind of a coppery taste to me. Decaf. Like I can always pinpoint it. When I have a harder time pinpointing if he'll do like a half and half situation, like if he has the coffee with half decaf, then it's a little easier to mask that flavor. But yeah, it almost has like the taste of pennies to me.
Since we referenced Gilmore Girls earlier, that reminds me of how Lorelai can smell snow. Your secret talent is you can taste decaf.
I can taste decaf. I actually bet Lorelai can taste decaf too.
I bet she can
for
too.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, that might even be in one of the episodes because, like, isn't Luke always trying to wean her off of coffee?
I think you're right. Yeah.
In there. But she's not wrong. Like, especially because I think I drink so much coffee that I'm like, I know what this flavor is. Yeah. And at this point now, I'm like, if I want decaf or something just cozy and warm later in the day, now I go for tea.
Absolutely. Okay. That makes sense.
People who knew me before are going to be like, this is not Katana. Inhabiting her, drinking tea.
So, Katana, now I'm very excited to kind of transition us into the part of today's episode where we get to talk about your book, Broken Romeo, which officially released yesterday, right? Yeah, the 30th. Yeah.
Yep.
So it is out. If you're listening to this episode, it is out. And Jen, do you want to start us off with the questions?
Of course. So obviously, for the listeners who don't know what the book is about, give us an elevator pitch of what Broken Romeo is about and what tropes that readers can expect to see in the book.
Oh, man. Elevator pitches are hard.
All right, not to put you on the spot.
No, okay. I should have been prepared for this. So it's about a girl who's wanting to be an actress in New York, and she's basically on her last dime, and she has one more audition to make it or break it. And if she doesn't get this part, she has to move home to Indiana. And she shows up at the audition, and the director is her ex from college, and it did not end well back in college. And she feels like it does not end well at the audition either.
Great. Yeah. That was great. You did fantastic with it.
Boom.
Oh, and standout tropes. So we've got second chance romance.
Yeah, second chance. Let's see, what else do we have? It's workplace because they're in the theater together. I don't actually think Broadway romance is a trope, but I personally feel like it should be. Definitely adult because we flash back a lot to their college days and like the betrayal, this elusive betrayal that happened. Romeo and Juliet themes, like not a retelling, so to speak, but just the nod to Romeo and Juliet. Let's see, what other trope would that have? I don't know, bad boy? He's kind of a bad boy. Like, yeah, I don't know. My assistant can probably answer that even more than me. I'm really bad at like, some authors are so good at they plan their tropes before they write. And I don't.
But that means you just let them happen as they feel natural, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so next question. In the book, Holden and Catherine are main characters. So they have a really interesting dynamic that I was really pulled into, and it's that Kate's real life feelings are essentially having to be flipped upside down for her role in the play, because her role in the play kind of puts her in the other shoes from what happened in their past. So let me remember the question that I was asking in relation to this. So because of that, it forces them to really more fully consider each other's reactions to the conflict that initially happened. Do you have, between the two of them, Holden or Kate, do you relate more to one or the other when it comes to their reactions?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's hard because every character is sort of an amalgamation of me. There's pieces of me in probably every single character I write, but I would say I'm more of a Kate. Like, her dialogue is very much the dialogue that I would have in that situation. And like, her snarky comments are very me. I think there's a line in there where he says something about an apology, and she's like, I didn't hear an apology. Like, you've never given me that, so how can I accept one? Like, that would definitely be what I would say to someone in that situation. Whereas Holden is a bit more, like, he's not revealing his cards, he's holding back.
Reserved.
And yeah, he's definitely more reserved, more stoic. I don't think that is as much me. The piece that is me when it comes to Holden is probably, like, I think even though it doesn't, I would define him as being non-confrontational. Like, I think the stoicism is sort of his like, shield to not actually confront things, like, especially with his parents, and that is me. Like, I don't like confrontation, I don't initiate confrontation. But where I'm more like Kate is if someone confronts me, I'm very reactive.
Great.
I think I agree with that. And that was actually one of the things that stood out for me from Kate, was how she was not just someone who would stay quiet. And kind of like with what you mentioned with the apology, I highlighted that part because I was like, yes, yes. I feel like anybody else would have just been like, yeah, but she was like, like, you never said anything to me, so why should I accept so that was one of my favorite parts of just her character. The fact that she was just, in a way, she was outspoken, and she was very observant too of everything that was happening, but just her. I loved Kate.
I kind of like that too. If somebody says I'm sorry and there's not like immediate context for the sorry, this is probably not great of me, but my next question tends to be, what are you sorry for? Like, I need that. Yeah.
Agree.
Can you show me if you recognize what you even did? Like, or are you just sorry because I'm clearly upset?
We are communication queens is what I'm getting from all of us.
Yes. Years of therapy has gotten me.
I understand. Me too.
Okay, Abby, continue.
Okay, so next question. I saw in your bio that you initially lived in Brooklyn, right? New York, for a long time before you moved to Maine. So this question is more just wondering, has the change in scenery had any impact on your writing style or what you've been in the mood to write? Like, has it affected you in any way in that regard?
Yeah, I think I have this weird thing that I think is probably a reverse of most authors. I don't like to write set in a place where I currently live. Like, it feels too close to home. Like, if I'm writing about a girl in Brooklyn who's traveling to New York City for auditions, that to me is like, oh my God, like, I have to travel to New York City all the time. Like, I don't want to write about this stupid subway when I have to take the stupid subway daily.
That makes sense.
So when I lived in Brooklyn, I had actually written a book that was set in Portland, Maine. And then when we moved to Portland, that's when I started writing books that were set in New York.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was like being away from New York. I was like, oh, well, now let me give like my love story to the city that I spent, a decade.
Wow. That's interesting. That's actually the opposite of what I wondered if you were going to say. So cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's not, I think most authors tend to write places that they live in, or at least that I mean, I know those places very well, both places, obviously, but yeah, to me, it was, again, it's, I guess that thing of like, I just get bored very easily, and it's like too boring to write in the same place that I'm currently like sitting in.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So going into our two characters, Catherine and Holden, one thing that caught my attention right from the beginning was the intense chemistry that they have. And I remember reaching chapter 13, and this is where Holden and Kate are in class in college. So it's a flashback episode. And the professor calls on them to act out, I think it's act 2, which is the balcony scene. And because they were kind of going back and forth. And so when I read that part, and I remember messaging Abby, I was like, Abby, this scene. And we were just, it was so explosive without anything actually happening, like, more, graphic or anything like that. And for me, while the chemistry already existed, it was chapter 13 that completely cemented the chemistry and the angst as well. The whole I hate you, but I want you, the push and pull between them and everything. So what was going through your mind while including these instances for the reader to just kind of feel the chemistry as they were reading?
Yeah, so showmances. Have you ever heard this phrase before? A showmance?
I've heard it, but I don't know if I actually know what it means, if that makes sense.
In the acting world, we call it, we use that term when someone falls for their co-star, or it's like a romance that happens within the show that they're in, and usually they break up after the show ends. Okay. Or like if your relationship starts when you're acting together in a show, you had a showmance, and it turns into something more after. But like a lot of times it's very hot and heavy and fleeting as well. And while I haven't necessarily experienced a ton of showmances myself, I've had a few. So I was really recalling back on those days where I've either been like at the first rehearsal opposite of an actor who I like clearly had my own chemistry with. And also just what I really wanted to lean into in that scene particularly was showing how well he knew her without actually having spent too much. Like he just knows her, like his soul knows her. Like I think is it that scene where he like, oh no, it might be the party scene. Well, in one of them, he like takes her script from her and like throws it away. Like he talks the other stage because he's like, he can tell that she's nervous and she's like burying her face in the script rather than just reciting the lines and feeling them, because like she knows this part inside and out. So yeah, like really just showing how connected they are and how intense their chemistry is on stage is the realization that they also have the chemistry off stage.
No, it was done so well. Like I could feel it as I was reading. I was just like, and I would even go back and reread certain parts because I was like, this is gold. It was so good. Like your writing there, again, already I thought it was good, but it was there that it just kind of like, her writing is good. Like it's great. So
could not put down.
I mean, a lot of the lines are done by Shakespeare, let's be honest. I was able to just like grab one.
No, let's give credit though. The lines might have been Shakespeare, but the physical underlying angst, it was chef's kiss.
Thank you.
It was fantastic. I agree. And diving into the flashback episodes, that this was a flashback, I said episode, a flashback chapter. So I had a question because these flashback chapters are journal entries from Holden, that he had this journal that he gives to Kate just for her to kind of like get to know him more and what was his thought process back in the day. And I thought it was such a neat idea to include these entries as a flashback style rather than the typical kind of like Dear Diary format. Was this something that you first intended to do, to have it in that flashback format, or like, and also how did you expect the reader to perceive these chapters in this particular style, knowing that it's coming from a journal? but not reading as a journal?
So it's just a personal preference. I personally, if I get to a journal entry in a book, I skim it. I just don't personally.
Same.
Sorry to people who write those. And people, like, if you love reading them, more power to you. Great. This is just my personal preference. But I felt like it was a necessary component that not only the reader learn his feelings, because the betrayal, which is not even quite revealed yet to you all, like the big betrayal is coming in subsequent books. But it's important for the reader to know why, like to know it from his point of view, more so from her than from her point of view. And also it's important for Kate to learn that, for Catherine to learn that. And the best way to make that happen is if he's basically saying, here, this is my heart on my sleeve, in that way that someone who's stoic and actually doesn't want to say, here's my heart on my sleeve, would say. Like he's kind of getting off easy if you think about it. Like he doesn't actually have to do any of the work apologizing. Like, here's my inner thoughts and ramblings. And like in some ways it's an intensely impeccable gesture, because you're not able to mask or hide things that you thought no one would see. But it's still somewhat of a cop-out, which she will call him out on later. So for me personally, I knew I wanted the flashbacks in there, and I knew I wanted them to be Kate, like reading these journal entries, but also I did not want to write them as journal entries at all. Like I didn't even, and I think I toyed with in the very beginning, like starting the chapters as journal entries. And it just, for me, I was like, I hate this. I can't do it. So I just like deleted those. And I felt like most readers would probably get it enough. Like we're suspending, our belief enough to be like, yeah, like this is not how someone would actually write a journal entry about what happened that day or how they betrayed someone. But for the sake of telling a good story, I think this is how we had to do it. I had to do it.
I agree with your assessment. I think it kept me hooked more, getting to, because it is through his eyes, but it's a more, I guess, well-rounded picture of everything other than
It's definitely, in my opinion, more immersive. Like whereas reading a journal entry to me comes out of like a deep POV versus like just kind of entering still in that keeps me submerged.
Yeah, it's almost like almost like when you reach a diary or journal entry, it kind of, this is how it feels like for me. I feel like the story takes like a hard stop to read that part, and then it's like, okay, now it restarts. Whereas the way that it was done in the book, it was more like it just flowed. It had a flowness to it that it just kept it going.
Well, and I think for me, sometimes as a reader, the reason it kind of has that stop is a journal entry is, if you think, like I used to keep a journal, but it's just me telling how I feel. And the number one rule of writing is like, you don't tell how you feel, you show it. So like when I hit a journal entry and I'm like, oh, this is just like, here's my feelings. And like, I don't know, for me, that's not as interesting as like showing the events that happened or transpired during the day, and you get his feelings through his inner thoughts. I will say, and I'd be curious how you feel too, Jen, but letters in a book don't take me out of the story as much. Like if someone, like I recently read Haunting Adeline.
Oh, yes.
She likes that one.
I love that one.
Oh God. And I mean, it's not, I guess they are kind of long letters though, because it's like the grandma, no, or is that a diary? It might be diary.
Oh gosh, it's been so long. Oh, no, they were letters.
They were letters. Okay. So for some reason, like that doesn't take me out as much, like a letter situation, or maybe it was just the way that book was written that it was so good. It didn't bother me. I don't know.
I'm trying to think because I remember reading, I don't know if you've read the book, The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros, the same author who wrote Fourth Wing. I remember there are letters in that book. And so I remember there were some letters where I was like hooked on what was happening. And then there were others where I just felt like it didn't have the same flow. So I was just like, and I would just skim and see what was more important that I needed to know to continue the story. So I guess that's where it just depends on the writing, maybe.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
So diving into our next question, how different or similar is Broken Romeo to your other previous books? We kind of touched on this in the beginning, I think, with talking about how you enjoy writing a wide range of genres. Are there any books that you've written that you think maybe Broken Romeo is very similar to in style, or?
Yeah, I would say, so the only other book I've done with cliffhangers is the paranormal romance.
Okay.
Soul Stripper. And that was also a trilogy. This is going to be a trilogy, I think. So yeah, I guess the erotic suspense had a cliffhanger as well. I can't really remember. Those were a long time ago, those books. Those were some of my first books I ever did. And then the other book I would say that's the closest to this one would be Blind Spot, which is my other new adult book. It isn't any sort of like series. It's just one standalone, no cliffhanger, college age book. But like similar, I think it's like the angst, and that push and pull, enemies to lovers. Oh, duh, that's one of the tropes here. Enemies to lovers.
Yes,
definitely. We all forgot about it.
Yep.
Yikes.
Definitely.
And probably He Falls First, maybe?
Yeah,
For
actually,
sure.
I would probably say that too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He falls first and he falls harder, I feel like.
Yep.
He falls way harder.
We love that. We love a groveling man.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, he needs to.
Yeah, he does. He does.
We don't know the full details yet, but we know that he
I know,
is.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I mean, you know some of them. Like each book has its own, like, the betrayal ramps up with every book, right? So like you've gotten like betrayal number 1.
Oh my goodness. So calling back to your reference to the fact that you kind of pulled some inspiration from your previous experience in theater, we would love to hear a little bit more about that. So what is your, history in theater? Where did your love for it come from?
Yeah. So I started acting when I was 8 years old professionally.
Wow.
Did
Wow.
dinner theater initially. I was 8 years old and I played Molly and Annie at the Dutch Dinner Theater in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And that's where it began. From there, I started doing professional theater like pretty regularly as a kid. I would do 3, 4, sometimes like 5 shows a year. I would do touring shows. Like I would have a tutor that we traveled with. I did some kind of like small films, but nothing that you would ever like know me from. Did a lot of like commercials, infomercials, junk like that. And then my senior year of high school, like right toward the end of it, I booked the tour of Cinderella as Cinderella.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And that was like a really big moment. The first time I'd ever really done a tour on my own. I was old enough that I didn't need to go with a guardian or a tutor, and it was real weird. And I remember being in the hotel after one of the shows. I think we were in like Birmingham, Alabama or something. And the cast was going out for whatever. It was like after 9 p.m. They were like going out for dinner. I don't know. Like I think we had just gotten to town and our show wasn't until the next day. And I texted my mom, like, can I go with them? And she was like, yeah, you also don't have to ask me. Like, you're on tour alone. Go. And so I get to hang out with the cast. And then let's see, from there, I went to college. Initially I was going to double major in theater and photography. I ended up dropping my theater major for a lot of reasons we don't need to go into. And then I worked at Disney for a while, moved up to New York and did a lot of like off Broadway, off Broadway, until eventually I got the part of a swing in Legally Blonde. Uh-huh. And that show broke me, and I quit theater for 10 years after.
Oh no! Wow.
The hardest jobs ever in the theater. If you know much about it, it's like you have to learn what's called a track. And in the track, you learn like several different parts, like different places on the stage. You have to be different choreographies, different lines, different everything, different musical parts sometimes. So like whether you're singing soprano or alto in the harmonies. And like every night you show up to the theater and you just wait. And if they need you, go on, get in hair and makeup, and you're on in like 10 minutes. And sometimes like this didn't happen to me, but sometimes an actor will like have an injury in the first act of the show. So you have to wait around and you go on in the second act because they sprained their ankle. I was in the audience for Thoroughly Modern Millie on Broadway, and one of the side characters, we literally saw her like break her ankle. Like she did a jump, and as she came down, her like foot kind of did that. And my friend and I were like, like, I know what that feels like, and that's not good. And sure enough, the next scene, it was a different actor.
Oh my gosh.
Being like you're just in the wings, basically waiting for that moment to happen, and it's terrifying and it's hard and it's awful. It's an awful, thankless job, and I hate it. So yeah, I quit theater for a while after that, and then when we moved to Maine, I was like, maybe I'll audition for some like community theater, local things, just to like get back into it, make friends. As an adult who works from home, making friends in a new town is impossible. It's so how do adults make friends? I was literally sitting here in Portland, Maine, like, do I join a bowling league? I was like, you've never bowled in your life. And I was like, I know, but I could bowl. And then I was going through all these things. I was like, maybe I'll, I don't know, what's it called? The roller derby. I was like, maybe I'll join a roller derby team. And he was like, you don't like danger. You don't like getting hurt. Like, why would you join a roller derby team? I was like, to make friends, Sean. Come on. So anyway, the most logical thing was to get back into the theater, which was like very scary, but also very much like coming home. Mm-hmm. Like walking back into the theater felt like coming home. And the friends that I made in that one show, I'm like still closest with now. And since then I've been doing more. I've done some professional theater locally. Like we have some summer stock type things around here, but mostly I just do the community theater for fun. Okay. So if you're on my Instagram, you'll probably see some of those like weird, like if you see me in a weird costume, because of theater.
Oh, I bet that's kind of cathartic though, getting to just do it because you enjoy it and not because there's pressure on it anymore.
Yeah. One of the things that we kind of always say if you're a professional actor is like you're a professional auditioner.
Oh yeah.
Like you audition more than you act. And to this day, auditions for me are so nerve-wracking. I usually puke before I go in.
Yeah, man.
Imagine like living in New York, trying to make this my living, and like auditioning sometimes 3 times a day, and just like being in the bathroom before this audition puking because I'm so nervous. And it was just no way to live for me. I was like, this is terrible. I need out. Yeah.
That is a setup asking for a mental breakdown eventually.
It really is. Some actors love auditions, which God bless them. Those are the people that should be continuing in that field, and it is not me. But the very first, I think it's in the first like paragraph of chapter 1, when Kate is talking about someone who said, oh, it's talking about her butt sweat. Which, all right, we're gonna get real because my butt sweats. Like I get It's not like swamp ass sweat. It's like the like smiley crease beneath. Like I just get like a little riddle beneath. It's like not cute. So that one is very me, that character.
My gosh.
And the line that for me, it was my makeup artist when I was in a film, told me that like women don't sweat, women glisten, men perspire, horses sweat. Because I was like, we were filming outside in the summer of North Carolina, and I was like, I'm so sweaty. And he was like, honey, no.
It's dewy skin. It's just dew. It's dewy, gluey, a youthful glow.
I mean, I definitely felt gluey that day. So yeah, that was a legit thing that I was told when I was 14 in a movie.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So you got it can be said that you got a lot of inspiration from your own experience in theater to add to Broken Romeo, especially with Kate, because you're talking about things that I'm like, wait, but I read certain experiences like this for Kate, especially with her trying to make it in Broadway and everything. So it kind of gives a whole different perspective to the story for me.
Like I said, very pulled from me and my experiences. Like I definitely never, the college stuff and the betrayal stuff, I've not had any of that. But yeah, like the definite like internal monologue that she goes through walking into auditions, those feelings, and like that's all stuff that pretty much comes right from my journals when I was trying to make it in New York.
Wow. And so also can it be said that that whole theater-esque vibe that the story has, that's you kind of wanted to give a little nod to that when writing Broken Romeo?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I mean, for as traumatic as it was for me in some ways, like I feel like I have PTSD. It also is it's still such a beautiful time for me. Like it was such a shaping time. It was such a coming of age time, that in some ways, like this trilogy is like this is my catharsis. This is my opus of like, the events are not how my events went, the actual plot and stuff, but the emotions behind it are very much my story, my feeling. She's my girl.
Aww.
That's powerful.
I want to, like, before I give the next to Abby, I do have one question that I thought about it, and I would like to know if there is a possibility of a story for Nolan, because I ended up loving Nolan so much, especially just him being like, yeah, I just want to be your friend, Kate. Like and that to me was like, oh, I don't know. I loved him. I loved him so much.
Yes, I do want there to be a spinoff for Nolan.
Yay!
Oh, that is so fun.
That makes
Great
me happy.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, I got my answer. I'm happy about that.
Okay. Okay.
I go back and forth on what that spinoff will look like, because this one is so intertwined with like college that, like, I don't know that I can do that if I do a Nolan book.
Can I just say that I would love Nolan with oh shoot, what's her roommate's name? Jill. Yeah. Okay, anyway.
But then again, I'm like, how do we do the college years? Because they
that's fun to think about.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, Broken Romeo does end on a cliffhanger. So I absolutely have to ask if there's any sort of timeline that we can expect for the next book in the series. Are we allowed to know that yet? Is that still in the works?
Pre-order.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on, I can look it up really quickly because.
Okay, you're fine.
Oh, off the top of my head, it's almost done. I'm almost done writing it.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, so it's not going to be too long of a wait. And the third book, I'm sort of, there's the beginning. Like I like to write the first few chapters of each book when I'm doing a cliffhanger. So like those have all been done for a while, but the third book isn't really. like I say not started because my focus is so on the second book.
Makes sense.
And I'm also thinking of doing another short with her POV, because like I doubt you two have read it, but there is Shattered Juliet, shows the college years from book 1 from her point of view.
Ooh. Can't wait to read that.
So it gives a little more context. It adds some scenes that like Holden wouldn't have been there for. So you kind of get to see the same scenes in Broken Romeo from her point of view plus added scenes. So I might do that again for the second book and have, again, all those scenes that are in the second book from her point of view in another little novella. Okay, let's see. It comes out February 8th.
Ooh, not too long at all.
Okay. Which is more like, oh God, I really have to finish those last few chapters.
Does my editor
Katana. Come on.
Has a title been announced yet for it or not yet?
Yes, it's Rebel Romeo.
Rebel Romeo. Ooh, I like that.
I like it. Oh my goodness. Like I honestly, yeah, I remember when I received the email from your team that I think they mentioned that it had a cliffhanger, and I was like, okay, I don't know how I feel about that it has a cliffhanger and then not having the next book yet. But the book sounded so good that, and I didn't tell Abby. Abby had no idea it ended in a cliffhanger.
Oh,
so she went through those emotions of like, what?
It's so hard to like warn people, because I know it's such a thing for people that they don't like. You either love cliffhangers or you hate them. I kind of love them.
I can tell.
Depends.
Even as a reader, I really love them.
What was really scaring me about her text messages was knowing that it was inspired. There's a lot of Romeo and Juliet undertones to the book. When she started asking me like, Abby, where are you? What part are you at? I was like, did they die? Like, what is happening?
That would be really mean. That would
Very.
be so cruel.
I was very happy to realize it was just a cliffhanger. It was not anything like that.
I was actually at the vet because I finished it, I think it was yesterday, and I was at the vet with my dog. And so I'm over here like reading, and right up until the end, I could not contain myself. Out loud, I would be like, oh, and I would just look around like, what just like, it's what I'm reading, is it real? And I'm just like, oh my goodness. And people looked at me like, are you okay? And I'm just like, oh, I could not. And so I started messaging Abby like, please get with the program. I need you to finish reading this book.
Man, I'm dying to know like what that gaspy moment was.
It was right towards the end. So I have to look for it. But yeah, I think it was, I don't want to give spoilers, but yeah.
Off the recording.
Yes, for sure.
Message me later.
Will do.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be asking for like snippets and like, can you give me something? Can you give me a quote? Like I need to survive till February.
I do. I have a Patreon where people can read along as I write. So like I post the weekly chapters of the next book, pretty much like it's a little ahead of what I'm writing because I like to have a little time to go back and just like tidy it up, clean it up. But yeah, like if for people who are like not able to wait, you can start reading.
Okay,
I'm like, okay, yeah, I might.
Yeah, same.
That it will most likely change, like, because as I'm writing, I might hit the last few chapters and be like, oh, those first 5 chapters, we're redoing all of that. So like, but for some people, they really love kind of seeing that process from the author. And like, I'm an insane author. I feel like the amount of times I've fully rewritten a book 2 weeks before it goes to publication, it kind of happened with Broken Romeo. Broken Romeo, the second half of the book was completely different. And then about weeks before it published, I was like, we're doing this instead. And like it had already been edited. It had already been copy edited. It had already been like formatted. Like this book had been done for almost a year and a half. And then a few weeks before publishing, I was like, no, that's not the ending.
We're both like, what?
I know.
I'm insane. Like you have no idea how crazy this girl is.
Oh my goodness. I love that though. That's amazing.
Me too.
Yeah, it was writing the prequel that did it. It was like when I wrote it from her point of view and it like shifted things enough that I was like, ooh, but this is better. And that's when I went back.
That's when you went back.
So cool.
Wow. Well, we have loved having you on the podcast. It's been such a fun conversation.
Great. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for
anytime.
Yeah.
I feel that I like chatted a lot. I feel like I took up a lot of time.
We do that.
Oh yeah.
You're fine.
When we initially started this podcast, we were like 20 to 30 minute episodes. No, we're always like at an hour longer. Like you fit right in. We will have you on the podcast anytime.
Because I can talk. Again, it's the too much coffee.
The jitters. It's like
No,
we'll definitely
be a lot easier.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you for book 2, book 3 for
Yay. Thank you so much.
And just a reminder to readers that Broken Romeo is out now. It's available, I mean, probably just wherever you get your books, right? And
it's in Kindle Unlimited, so
perfect.
Nice.
Okay, so it is on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. And so yeah, I'm gonna encourage everybody right now to pull out your phone and add it to your TBR on whatever book tracking app you use, because you do not want to let this one slip by. It is so good.
Well, thank you again. This has been so much fun.
It really has. Abby, if you want to do the send off.
Yes, I'm gonna be honest, I was on the wrong document, so I can't find it. Do you want to do it?
All right, sure.
Sorry.
If you've made it this far, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for listening to the entire episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave a review or a rating wherever you listen to podcasts and maybe share it with your friends. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like for us to talk about in future episodes. Even some authors that you would like for us to interview as well, please let us know and message us on our Instagram at Exactlyyy Pod, and that's exactly with 3 Ys. We are always open to new ideas. And once again, thank you for tuning in. See you next week for a new episode. And remember to add Broken Romeo to your TBR. Fangirl over talking to authors of books that you love and overuse the word exactly.